Alright, buckle up, because what we're about to dive into will challenge everything you thought you knew about your spiritual journey. Today, we're going to explore the truth about spiritual guides, these unseen forces that 99.9% of people don't truly understand. But you're here for a reason. You're part of the 0.1% who are ready to wake up to the deeper reality of these guides and how they work in your life. Now, let's talk about spiritual guides. I'm not just talking about figures like angels, ancestors, or mythical beings. Yes, those play a role, but spiritual guides come in many forms, and most people miss the subtleties of their presence. They can manifest as a sudden insight, a gut feeling, a synchronicity, or even a moment of deep stillness. The problem is, most people are so busy looking for big, dramatic signs that they miss the quiet, powerful guidance that's always there, whispering to them. So here's the first truth. Spiritual guides aren't outside of you. They're not some external force watching you from afar, waiting to intervene in your life like a superhero swooping in to save the day. No, they are part of you. They are expressions of your higher self, your soul, and the universal consciousness that flows through everything. They communicate with you through your intuition, your dreams, your emotions, and even through the people and experiences you encounter every day. But here's the thing, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
I think about the last time you had a strong gut feeling about something. Maybe you felt drawn to a particular decision, or maybe you felt an unexplainable pull toward a certain person or place. That wasn't just random. That was your spiritual guidance speaking to you. The problem is, we've been conditioned to ignore these subtle nudges. We've been taught to rely solely on logic and reason, to dismiss the inner voice that's trying to guide us. And in doing so, we cut ourselves off from the very thing that's trying to support us. So here's the deep question. Are you listening to your inner guidance, or are you too caught up in the noise of the world? Are you paying attention to the whispers of your soul, or are you waiting for a big, flashy sign to confirm what you already know deep down? Here's another thing that most people misunderstand. Spiritual guides don't just tell you what you want to hear. They're not here to make life easy for you. They're here to help you grow, and growth often requires discomfort. Sometimes, your guides will lead you into situations that are challenging, painful, or confusing, not because they want you to suffer, but because they know that's where your greatest transformation lies. They know that your soul didn't come here to play small or to stay comfortable. You came here to evolve, to expand, and to become the fullest expression of who you really are. But here's where most people miss the mark. When things get tough, they assume their guides have abandoned them, or they've taken a wrong turn. But what if the challenge itself is the guidance? What if that difficult situation is exactly what you need to break through to the next level of your growth? You see, spiritual guidance doesn't always come in the form of light and love. Sometimes it comes in the form of a storm that shakes everything up, forcing you to let go of what's no longer serving you. So, ask yourself, what challenges are you facing right now that might actually be your guides pushing you toward your highest potential? What if the very thing you're resisting is the key to your next breakthrough? Another huge misconception people have is that spiritual guides are only for the spiritual moments in life you know, the times when you're meditating, doing yoga, or sitting in silence. But your guides are with you all the time, in the mundane moments, in the chaos, in the everyday decisions you make. They're there when you're driving to work, when you're having a difficult conversation, even when you're scrolling through social media. But again, it's all about whether or not you're paying attention. The truth is, every moment of your life is infused with spiritual significance if you're willing to see it. Your guides don't just show up when you're sitting cross-legged in meditation. They show up when you're in the middle of an argument, when you're feeling lost, when you're making a seemingly insignificant choice. That's the magic most people miss. They think the spiritual realm is separate from the physical, but it's not. It's intertwined with every aspect of your life. Your guides are always guiding you whether you realize it or not. So, take a moment and reflect. Where in your everyday life might your guides be trying to communicate with you? What ordinary moments have you overlooked that actually hold the key to your spiritual growth? Now, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood aspects of spiritual guidance: trust. Most people don't trust their guides. They get a nudge, a feeling, or a sign, and they immediately start doubting it. Was that real? Was that just my imagination? What if I'm making it up? This is where so many people get stuck. They don't trust the guidance they're receiving, so they block it out. But here's the thing: the more you trust, the clearer the guidance becomes. It's like a muscle you have to train. The more you listen to your intuition and act on it, the stronger the connection becomes. But trust requires surrender. It requires letting go of the need to know all the answers, to have everything figured out. And that's hard. We live in a world where we're taught to control everything, to plan everything, to have certainty. But spiritual guidance doesn't work that way. It requires you to take leaps of faith, to follow the breadcrumbs, even when you don't know where they're leading. So, I want you to ask yourself, do you trust your spiritual guidance, or are you constantly second-guessing it? And if you don't trust it, what's holding you back? What would happen if you started to trust that inner voice, even just a little bit more? By now, you're probably starting to see just how misunderstood spiritual guides really are. They're not external beings floating in the clouds, waiting to give you all the answers. They're part of you. They're always with you, guiding you through your own intuition, your own experiences, and your own growth. And when you start to listen, really listen, you'll find that the guidance has been there all along, waiting for you to tune in. All right, now that we've laid the foundation, let's dive deeper into trust, surrender, and the hidden power of intuition, because this is where most people get stuck. You see, most of us have been taught to live life from the mind. We've been conditioned to rely on logic, reason, and what we can see with our physical eyes. But spiritual guidance operates on a completely different wavelength. It speaks to you through your intuition, that gut feeling, that quiet inner knowing that doesn't always make sense logically, but feels profoundly true. Here's the thing: your intuition is your direct line to your spiritual guides. It's the way they speak to you, not through words or grand gestures, but through subtle feelings, impressions, and synchronicities. But because it's so subtle, it's easy to doubt it. And that's where trust comes in. Trust is the bridge between your logical mind and your intuition, between control and surrender. Without trust, you'll constantly be second-guessing yourself, dismissing those intuitive nudges as just a coincidence or wishful thinking. But there's no such thing as coincidence in a universe where everything is connected. Here's a deep question for you. How often do you ignore your intuition because it doesn't line up with what your mind thinks is logical? How many times have you felt that quiet nudge to take a certain action, but then talked yourself out of it because it didn't make sense on paper? The reality is, your spiritual guides are always speaking to you through your intuition, but they require you to trust what you feel over what you think. And that's hard, especially in a world that values control, certainty, and logic. But the truth is, the most powerful spiritual guidance often comes in the form of uncertainty. It asks you to take a leap into the unknown, to follow the path that feels right, even if you can't see the whole picture. And here's where surrender comes in. Surrender doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means letting go of the need to control every outcome, to have everything figured out. It means trusting that your spiritual guides and your intuition are leading you in the right direction, even when you don't know where that direction is taking you. This is one of the hardest lessons for most people to learn, because we've been taught that we need to constantly push, strive, and hustle to make things happen. But spiritual guidance operates in a different flow. It asks you to align with the flow of life, to listen to the guidance that's already within you, and to trust that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Now, let's get practical. How do you actually surrender? How do you let go of control and trust your intuition when the stakes feel high? It starts with small acts of trust. You don't need to make a huge leap of faith overnight. Start by tuning in to your intuition in small ways. Maybe it's as simple as listening to your gut when deciding which route to take home or which person to reach out to. Pay attention to how your body feels when you make decisions. Does it feel light and expansive or tight and contracted? Your body is a powerful tool for tuning into your intuition because it's more connected to your spiritual guidance than your mind is. Here's another deep question. What would happen if you trusted your intuition more, even in small ways? How would your life begin to shift if you started following those subtle nudges, even when they didn't make logical sense? When you start to practice trust and surrender, something magical happens. You begin to notice more synchronicities, more signs, more moments where things just seem to fall into place. That's because you're no longer resisting the flow of life. You're aligning with it. And the more you align with that flow, the clearer your spiritual guidance becomes. It's like tuning a radio. When you're out of alignment, the signal is fuzzy. But as you trust and surrender, the signal becomes clearer and stronger. But here's the kicker. This doesn't mean everything will always be easy. Trusting and surrendering doesn't mean you'll never face challenges or obstacles. In fact, sometimes your guides will lead you directly into challenges because that's where your growth is. But when you trust the process, even the challenges become part of the guidance. You start to see that everything is happening for you, not to you. So here's the final question for this part. Are you willing to trust that even your challenges are part of your spiritual guidance? Can you surrender to the idea that what you're going through, no matter how difficult, is exactly what your soul needs to evolve? When you start to live from this place of trust and surrender, your entire experience of life begins to shift. You stop fighting against the current and start flowing with it. And that's when the true power of spiritual guidance reveals itself not as something outside of you, but as something that's always been within you, waiting for you to tune in. Let's dive into something that so many of us struggle with: the illusion of control. We've been taught from a young age that we need to control our lives, that we need to plan everything out, set goals, hustle, and force things to happen. But here's the truth that almost no one understands. Control is an illusion. The more you try to control outcomes, the more resistance you create in your life. You push, you strain, you fight to make things happen. And in doing so, you cut yourself off from the flow of spiritual guidance that's always trying to lead you toward your highest good. Now think about it. When was the last time you tried to force something to happen? Maybe it was a relationship, a career move, or even a simple plan that you wanted to go perfectly. And how did that feel? How much stress and anxiety did you experience because things weren't going exactly the way you envisioned? This is where most people get stuck. They think that if they can just control every little detail, then everything will work out. But the truth is, the more you try to control, the more you block the natural flow of life. This is where letting go becomes so powerful. Letting go doesn't mean that you stop caring or that you give up on your dreams and goals. It means that you release the need to force things to happen in a specific way. It means that you trust the process, even when you don't have all the answers. You see, spiritual guidance doesn't work on your timetable. It doesn't always show up when you think it should or in the way you expect. But when you let go of control, when you release the tight grip you have on how things should unfold, you open yourself up to experiencing the guidance that's been there all along. Here's the deep question. What are you trying to control in your life right now? What would happen if you let go of the need to force an outcome and instead trusted that everything is unfolding exactly as it should? Letting go is not about passivity, it's about alignment. When you let go of control, you align yourself with the flow of the universe, with the divine intelligence that's guiding your life. You stop swimming upstream and instead, you flow with the current of life. And here's the surprising part: when you let go, things often start to fall into place in ways you couldn't have planned. Opportunities arise, synchronicities happen, and the path forward becomes clearer, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. But letting go requires one key thing: trust. Trust that the universe knows what it's doing. Trust that your spiritual guides are leading you, even when the path seems unclear. And trust that sometimes the best action you can take is to do nothing, just to be still and allow things to unfold naturally. So, here's the final question for this part. Where in your life can you practice letting go? What would shift for you if you stopped trying to control every detail and instead allowed the natural flow of spiritual guidance to lead the way? When you release control, you're not giving up your power, you're stepping into a greater power. A power that comes from being in harmony with the universe rather than trying to bend it to your will. And that's when spiritual guidance can truly work miracles in your life. Let's bring this all together by discussing something incredibly practical: how to recognize the signs from your spiritual guides and deepen your connection with them. The truth is, spiritual guidance is constantly flowing into your life. But the question is, are you noticing it? Are you tuned in? Most people aren't, and it's not because the signs aren't there. It's because they don't know how to recognize them, or they dismiss them as coincidences or random occurrences. So, how do you start recognizing the signs? First, understand that signs from your spiritual guides can come in many forms. They can be subtle or obvious, but they're always personal. What might be a sign for you could be completely meaningless to someone else. Why? Because your guides communicate with you in ways that resonate with you specifically. They know your mind, your emotions, your experiences, and they use everything around you: people, numbers, symbols, feelings to get your attention. One of the most common ways spiritual guidance shows up is through synchronicities. You know, those moments where everything seems to align perfectly, as if the universe is orchestrating a series of events just for you. You run into someone you were just thinking about. You see repeated numbers like 1111 or 333 on clocks, receipts, or license plates. You hear a song on the radio that speaks directly to what you're going through. These aren't random. They're signs. They're little nudges from your guides, reminding you that you're on the right path, or maybe even guiding you to pay attention to something specific. Here's a deep question for you. When was the last time you experienced a synchronicity? And did you take the time to reflect on what it might be trying to tell you? Or did you brush it off as a coincidence? Another powerful way to recognize spiritual guidance is through your emotions. Your feelings are one of the most direct ways your guides communicate with you. When you feel light, expansive, joyful, or peaceful about something, that's a sign you're in alignment with your highest path. When you feel contracted, anxious, or uneasy, that's a signal that something is off. Your guides are constantly sending you these emotional signals, but we often ignore them or rationalize them away because we're too focused on what we think we should be doing. So here's a practical tip. Start paying attention to your emotions as guidance. When you're making a decision, whether it's something big like a career move or something small like how to spend your day, pause for a moment and tune into how you feel. Does the idea of going in one direction feel heavy or forced? Does another option feel lighter, more exciting, or more natural? That's your inner guidance system speaking to you. Now, let's get even more practical. There are specific tools and practices you can use to deepen your connection with your spiritual guides and make it easier to recognize the signs they're sending you. One of the most powerful tools is meditation. Meditation isn't just about quieting the mind, it's about creating space for you to hear the subtle wisdom that's always flowing through you. When your mind is constantly busy, it's hard to notice the signs or feel the intuitive nudges. But when you meditate, you create a space of stillness where guidance can come through more clearly. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to sit in silence for hours. Start with just a few minutes a day. Focus on your breath, let go of expectations, and just be open. You might not get a direct message in the moment, but over time you'll notice that your intuition becomes sharper and the signs will become more apparent. It's not about forcing the guidance to come, it's about allowing it to flow naturally when you're in a receptive state. Another practical tool is journaling. Writing down your thoughts, feelings, and experiences can be a powerful way to uncover hidden messages from your guides. Sometimes when you're writing, you'll notice patterns or insights that you didn't see before. You might even start to receive intuitive hits while journaling, like a sudden idea or realization that seems to come out of nowhere. That's your guidance coming through. Here's a deep question. When was the last time you sat down with your thoughts and truly listened to what your inner voice was trying to tell you? Have you ever considered that the answers you're seeking are already within you, just waiting for you to create the space to hear them? Lastly, let's talk about dreams. Dreams are another powerful way your spiritual guides communicate with you. When you sleep, your conscious mind relaxes and your subconscious becomes more active. This is when your guides can send you messages, often in the form of symbols, people, or experiences in your dreams. I don't dismiss your dreams as meaningless. Start paying attention to them. Keep a dream journal by your bed and write down any significant dreams or feelings you have upon waking. Over time, you'll start to notice patterns or recurring themes that can offer you powerful guidance. And here's one last practical tip. Ask for signs. Your spiritual guides are always willing to help, but they won't interfere with your free will. If you're feeling lost or unsure, simply ask for a sign. You can be specific too. Ask for a certain number, a symbol, or even a person to show up in your life as confirmation. And then, let it go. Don't obsess over it or try to force it. Just stay open and trust that the sign will come in the perfect way and at the perfect time. So, here's the final deep question to leave you with. Are you willing to open yourself up to the guidance that's already around you, waiting to be noticed? Because once you start recognizing the signs, your connection with your spiritual guides will deepen, and you'll begin to navigate life with a sense of trust, clarity, and flow that most people never experience. When you can tune into the subtle signs, trust your intuition, and surrender to the flow of life, you'll realize that spiritual guidance isn't something rare or elusive. It's something that's always been there, waiting for you to notice.